There is a list, a real list, with real names on it. Names of some of the most powerful people on the planet, politicians, billionaires, royalty, celebrities. People who flew on a private jet to a private island. People who attended parties at a Manhattan mansion. People who knew exactly what was happening there. That list exists because of Jeffrey Epstein, a man with no obvious source of income who somehow accumulated a $577 million fortune, owned a private island in the Caribbean, a 40,000 square foot mansion in Manhattan, and maintained relationships with the most powerful people in the world. In 2019, Jeffrey Epstein was found dead in a maximum security federal prison cell. The official verdict was suicide. The camera system outside his cell had malfunctioned. The guards were asleep. And the list of names was ordered sealed. Until now, this is the Epstein file. And it is worse than you think. Jeffrey Edward Epstein was born in Brooklyn in 1953 to a working-class family. He dropped out of college. He had no finance degree, no law degree, no habeas qualifications. Yet somehow, by his mid-30s, he was managing the private fortunes of billionaires, including retail magnate Les Wexner, who handed Epstein control of his entire $1 billion fortune in an arrangement that financial investigators later described as unlike anything they had ever seen. Epstein's business model was never clearly explained. He claimed to only work for clients worth over $1 billion. He had no public clients, no public office, no public record of any transactions. But he had something more valuable than money. He had access to the most powerful people in America and the world. He cultivated relationships with presidents, prime ministers, Nobel Prize winners, and royalty with an almost surgical precision. Former President Bill Clinton flew on his private jet, known as the Lolita Express, at least 26 times according to flight logs. Prince Andrew of the British royal family was photographed inside Epstein's Manhattan mansion. Harvard professors, MIT scientists, Hollywood producers, all of them found reasons to spend time with a man whose source of wealth and influence nobody could ever fully explain. That was not an accident. That was the point. Behind the dinner parties and the private jets and the carefully cultivated connections, Jeffrey Epstein was running a systematic criminal operation. Beginning in the early 1990s and continuing for over a decade, Epstein, with the direct assistance of Ghislaine Maxwell, recruited, groomed, and sexually abused hundreds of underage girls. The victims were targeted deliberately: young girls from vulnerable backgrounds, girls who needed money, girls who trusted adults, girls who had nobody powerful to protect them. They were recruited with promises of modeling opportunities, money, and connections. Once inside Epstein's world, they were trafficked to his properties in New York, Florida, New Mexico, Paris, London, and his private island Little St. James, where they were abused by Epstein and, according to court documents, by his associates. Virginia Roberts Giuffre, one of the survivors, was recruited by Maxwell at age 15 at a Palm Beach spa where she worked. Giuffre later testified under oath that she was trafficked to multiple powerful men, including British royalty. Maria Farmer, one of the first women to report Epstein to the FBI, did so in 1996. The FBI opened a file. Nothing happened. In Palm Beach, a police detective named Joseph Ricari built a case involving over 40 underage victims. He took it to the Palm Beach state attorney. He took it to the FBI. He took it to federal prosecutors. And one by one, every door was closed. In 2007, after years of investigations, victim testimony, and overwhelming evidence, federal prosecutors in Miami had a case that should have put Jeffrey Epstein in prison for life. They had over 40 named victims, corroborating evidence, flight logs, photographs, witness statements, everything a prosecution needs. What happened next has been described by legal experts as the most corrupt plea agreement in the history of the United States Department of Justice. The lead federal prosecutor was Alexander Acosta, a man who would later become Donald Trump's Secretary of Labor. Acosta entered secret negotiations with Epstein's legal team, a team that included some of the most powerful defense attorneys in America, including Alan Dershowitz of Harvard Law School. The resulting non-prosecution agreement was negotiated entirely in secret. The victims were never informed. Federal law requires victims to be notified of any plea agreement. That law was broken, deliberately, Under the deal, Epstein agreed to plead guilty to 2 state charges of soliciting prostitution. Not federal sex trafficking, not child abuse, soliciting prostitution. He served 13 months in a private wing of the Palm Beach County Jail. He was allowed to leave the jail 6 days a week, for up to 12 hours a day, for so-called work release at his Palm Beach office. The victims found out about the deal from a newspaper article. A federal judge later ruled that the non-prosecution agreement had violated the Crime Victims' Rights Act. It didn't matter. The deal held. After the 2008 deal, Epstein returned to his life. His Manhattan mansion, his private island, his jet, his network, and the powerful men who had been part of his world continued to be part of his world. The flight logs of the Lolita Express show hundreds of flights with passengers including former presidents, foreign heads of state, and A-list celebrities. On Little St. James Island, which locals called Pedophile Island, construction continued. Underground facilities were built. A strange blue and white striped building appeared on the island's highest point that no official explanation has ever adequately addressed. In 2014, 6 years after the plea deal, Virginia Roberts Jeffrey filed a lawsuit naming Prince Andrew as one of the men she had been trafficked to. That lawsuit was initially filed under seal. The documents remained sealed for years. When they were finally partially unsealed in January 2024, the names they contained sent shockwaves around the world. Over 170 names. Politicians, royalty, tech executives, media figures. And yet, of all the powerful men named in those documents, the number who have faced criminal charges is exactly 0. In July 2019, 11 years after the sweetheart deal, federal prosecutors in New York arrested Jeffrey Epstein at Teterboro Airport as his private jet landed from Paris. The charges were federal sex trafficking of minors. This time, there would be no deal. Epstein was held without bail at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in Manhattan, one of the most secure federal facilities in the United States. He was placed on suicide watch after an alleged earlier attempt. Then, 24 days after his arrest, on August 10, 2019, Jeffrey Epstein was found dead in his cell. The medical examiner ruled it suicide by hanging. A forensic pathologist hired by Epstein's brother disagreed, citing injuries more consistent with homicidal strangulation. Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's closest associate and alleged co-conspirator, had disappeared. She remained in hiding for over a year. When she was finally arrested in July 2020 at a New Hampshire property she had purchased for cash under a different name, investigators found she had been living with a stockpile of phones and devices wrapped in tin foil to prevent tracking. In December 2021, Maxwell was convicted on 5 federal counts of sex trafficking and conspiracy. She was sentenced to 20 years. She has never, not once, named a single additional accomplice. In January 2024, more than 4 years after Epstein's death, a federal court in New York began releasing the sealed documents. Over 900 pages of depositions, court filings, and evidence files. The names confirmed what many had suspected. The documents revealed the full scale of the operation, the private planes, the island, the network of enablers, the lawyers who knew, the agents who looked away, the institutions that accepted his money and asked no questions. Harvard University accepted $6.5 million from Epstein, even after his 2008 conviction. MIT Media Lab took millions more. Epstein was photographed with Prince Andrew after his conviction. The photograph was taken in New York's Central Park. Prince Andrew has denied any wrongdoing. He settled Virginia Jeffrey's civil lawsuit for a reported $12 million, without admitting liability. The full list of names in the unsealed documents has still not been fully released to the public. As of today, portions remain sealed. The truth doesn't disappear. It echoes, and some of the loudest echoes are still waiting to be heard.